recorded.
Good evening, everyone. We're just trying to figure out one technical difficulty real quickly. It'll take just a minute more to get our second board member on the call. Thanks for your patience. We'll start in just a minute or two. Okay, we're just getting that issue straightened out right now, and we should start in about 1 to 2 minutes. Thank you for your patience. Sorry for the delay. All right. Good evening. My name is Michael Bowling. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Learning and Innovation at the Virginia Department of Education. We're so glad that you're joining us here this evening. And I'm going to, we have 2 board members with us this evening. The second one is coming in just, oh, there he just arrived. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Keisha Anderson, if she's available. All right, there she is. All right, so I'll turn it over to you, and then you'll do the intros, and then I'll call the individual speakers as they signed up. Thank you. You're muted.
You know, no one understood how powerful the mute button would be in the future, but man, it has a lot of power nowadays. Thank you, Mr. Bowling. So appreciate the opportunity to be part of the hearing today. Keisha Anderson, a Board of Education member, happy to support this effort. Just going to open up with a few comments and then we can get started. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. And on behalf of the Virginia Board of Education, I would like to welcome you to this virtual public hearing. So the purpose of this hearing is to receive comments and suggestions from you, the parents, the teachers, the administrators, community members, and other members of the public regarding the proposed driver education standards of learning and the physical education standards of learning. The proposed 2022 physical education standards, physical education and driver education standards of learning reflects the expertise of diverse constituents and were developed through numerous phases of meetings convened with Virginia educators, college professors, and other interested stakeholders. This public hearing serves as another opportunity for the Board of Education to receive additional citizen input. So your comments and suggestions are extremely important to the board as we prepare to address approval and adoption of the proposed standards of learning at the March 2022 Board of Education meeting. So we sincerely appreciate your willingness to speak with us tonight, and we value your comments. At this time, I do want to review a few guidelines for the speakers and the members of the audience. So I have 7 guidelines to review very quickly. Number 1, we're going to make sure that the speakers are recognized in the order in which their email request was processed. Number 2, speakers must limit their remarks to a maximum of 3 minutes each. And number 3, a signal, audible and visual as appropriate, will be given when a speaker's time limit has expired. So number 4, when your time is up, please close your remarks promptly. And if you have not done so already, you're welcome to email a copy of your remarks to Vanessa Wiggins, VDOE coordinator for driver education and physical education after you have finished speaking. The 5th guideline is that in the event that there's more persons that signed up than the total time allows for us this evening, then the Board of Education does reserve the right to ask all the speakers to limit their remarks to 2 minutes or less each. Number 6, as a reminder, before you begin speaking, please provide your name and your affiliation at the beginning of your remarks. And then lastly, speakers are again welcome to provide comments of their written copy of their written comments, to the Virginia Department of Education to share. So with that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Bowling.
Thank you so much. And just to get you acquainted, Dr. Almerode will be showing the cards. And do you have the indicators that you'll be using? You're going to have to hold it a little closer so that they can see the yellow. Okay. So it will be a yellow indicator indicating that there are 30 seconds remaining, and then a red indicator when you need to wrap up your remarks. Here we go. There's a red and there's the yellow. That's perfect. Thank you so much. And so as Dr. Anderson mentioned, we will be calling the speakers in the order in which they are signed up. Some of the speakers are not here at this time, and so we will move to the next speaker. And then what we will do is come back to those speakers at the end and see if they're there. In addition, if you would like to speak and you're on the call, you can enter your wish to speak in the chat, and we will add you to the list at the end. As a reminder, Dr. Anderson mentioned that please indicate your name and affiliation, but if you could also indicate if you're providing comment on the PE standards, the physical education standards, or the driver education standards, that would be quite helpful as we're covering two topics here today. So let's see, we'll get Dr. Albin, if you could please promote Sheila Jones and also Deborah DeFranco. Okay, oh, I see you already have. So we will start with Sheila Jones. You can unmute and speak. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sheila Jones. I'm the Health and PE Coordinator for K-12 programs in Virginia Beach City Public Schools. I'd like to say good evening to Dr. Anderson, Mr. Swan, other board members, Dr. Bowling. I had the honor of serving as the liaison for the Health and PE Review Committee between the teaching staff and the VDOE staff. I have some written remarks that have a lot more message for you about the process, but I'll go ahead and get to the points about the 43-member committee review. All right, so the first is the reorganization, simplification, and scaffolding of motor skills will benefit students and teachers. As someone with a strong background in special education, I'm super excited about the addition of standards that focus on inclusion in physical activity settings because most health and PE has evolved to an inclusion model. There's a greater emphasis now on small-sided games and more opportunities for movement with increased intensity levels during class versus teaching skills in a traditional sports model. The addition of student reflection on fitness goals gives students more ownership and voice. The focus on weight management versus obesity as a topic provides students with a mindset of attainability versus classification that is permanent and has a negative connotation. We agreed that energy balance is a term students understand. In fact, the National Organization for Health and PE, Shape America, has also adopted this language of energy balance. There was much discussion about the topic with the college contributors as some viewed energy balance differently than the K-12 counterparts. The group consensus, however, was to continue with a focus on how the body uses energy and actions we can take that contribute to energy balance and imbalance. As we know, body image is a significant issue in our society, and science-based information for making healthy choices is important for our students to understand, as well as the variety of foods, their nutritional value, and how activity levels impact health and wellness. Combining nutrition with movement concepts is not about restricting calories, it's about balance, eating healthy foods, eating the higher calorie, sometimes foods, and having fun engaging in physical fitness activities. Public schools will benefit from the refinement of the standards as they effectively dial in on what students should know and be able to do in physical education. My counterparts from other states often remark that Virginia's standards are known as the gold standard. Vanessa Wiggin has created a community of collaboration for our profession that allows us to seamlessly work together to create quality standards, and we are proud and excited about celebrating the proposed 2022 Physical Education Standards of Learning. I want to thank the VDOE team, Vanessa Wiggin, Liz Payne, and Danny Almirad. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We will begin with our next speaker in just 1 second, but just as a reminder, if you will please submit any of your comments, you can choose to submit them in writing. You can either send them to, in the chat is vanessa.wiggin@doe.virginia.gov, or you can simply send them to instruction@doe.virginia.gov. As another reminder, we are receiving public input tonight, and so board members have been, as a part of the receiving public comment, it is not about engaging in discussion. It's about receiving everyone who wants to speak and making sure that we have enough time for every person. So thank you, just as an additional reminder. And with that, we'll turn over to Debbie DeFranco.
Thank you. I'm Debbie DeFranco, Supervisor of Health, Physical, Driver Education, and Athletics for Arlington Public Schools with almost 40 years of experience as a health and physical education professional. But I'm also the proud parent of 2 students who received driver education within Arlington Public Schools. Tonight, I will be providing remarks for the driver education proposed standards. I want to thank you for the opportunity to provide remarks on the proposed driver education standards of learning. I want to thank Vanessa Wiggin, her VDOE colleagues, and the Virginia driver educators across the state for their work on these standards. Driver education is necessary for both driver and passenger. It is a person's civic responsibility to foster safe driving attitudes and behaviors to protect self and others. Driver education also provides students with mobility to pursue employment, healthy food, as well as higher education. Driver education uses an interdisciplinary approach to the SOLs, addressing social, emotional well-being, physical, mental, and cognitive skills. For example, driver education point 4 identifies how laws of physics and force of impact affect the vehicle's control and balance. In other SOLs, it addresses a driver's psychological state of mind that could impact the emotions they have when they get behind the wheel. I'm pleased that driver education point 7 identifies the various expressways such as Diamond, Trumpet, and Cloverleaf, and provides driving strategies involved in these difficult and dangerous interchanges. Even though Virginia's health education provides excellent substance abuse teaching, I appreciate that driver education point 9 has comprehensive instruction that describes psychological, physiological, and cognitive effects of alcohol and other drugs, both legal and illegal, on a driver's awareness and involvement in collisions. Remember, cars don't crash, people crash them. Driver education 11 can't underestimate the consequences of aggressive driving and road rage. This standard identifies anger management strategies to reduce stress and hostility and frustration that could lead to reckless and dangerous driving. It also analyzes road rage and poses a threat and how it poses a threat to everyone's health and safety. I'm also pleased that driver education 13 identifies visual, auditory, manual, and cognitive distractions that divert a driver's task to address a variety of behaviors. These standards identify both interior and exterior distraction that takes the driver's eyes off the road and or hands off the wheel. Simple tasks such as changing the radio station or looking at billboards to more complex tasks like texting. Standard 21 is enhanced so students will understand that there are a variety of responsibilities in vehicle ownership. The SOLs will include instruction on leasing versus purchasing and a variety of types of new vehicles, going from all electric to hybrid to the traditional gas-powered vehicles. While driver education point 23 explores and evaluates environmental impact of transportation, it also compares the use of public transit, walking, biking, and rideshare. In today's declining climate change, it's never too late to make responsible decisions that take care of our natural resources, and this instruction provides students an opportunity to analyze each option.
Mr. Franco, if you could wrap up, that would be great. Thank you.
Certainly, I'm almost done. Even though driver education .24 is a result of Virginia Code. It's one of the most important standards which addresses safe interaction with law enforcement at a traffic stop. How many times have traffic stops turned deadly? Our students do not have to die at a traffic stop. They must learn how to interact safely with law enforcement. I'd like to thank and I want to thank my colleagues for the work on these SOLs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Franco. And please know that it's not that I enjoy interrupting a speaker at all, please. I just want to ensure that everyone has equal time to speak. And so that's the purpose. So thank you very much. And we will move then to Ms. Robin Shepard.
My name is Dr. Robin Shepard. I served as the committee coordinator for the SOL Curriculum Review Committee for Driver Education. Driver education is important in the state of Virginia, and driver literacy is an important life skill. Becoming a driver is challenging as well as a life-changing event. Think about when you first learned to drive. Who taught you how to drive? Was it a parent, an older sibling, a neighbor, a teacher? When someone hears that I teach driver education, their first question is, how do you get in a car with a teenager? Then I always hear, you must have nerves of steel. Well, I get in a car with a teenager because I stand behind our standards of learning. The classroom and in-car driver education standards help students develop conceptual understanding of safe driving practices and proficient skill-based performance. I am excited about the updated standards of learning. Teachers, administrators, representatives from higher education from across the state of Virginia spent months developing and updating these standards. The Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles, the Virginia Department of Transportation also offered feedback. The American Driver and Traffic Safety Education Association, known as ATSIA, wants to use Virginia's curriculum because our curriculum is based on high standards. I'm especially excited to teach others about these two standards. Standard 10, the student will identify and analyze the legal and economic consequences associated with alcohol, marijuana, and other drug use while driving. Specifically, now that marijuana has become decriminalized, more people are using marijuana and getting behind the wheel. We know this is a very dangerous mix. Also, standard 24, the student will demonstrate an understanding of safe interaction with law enforcement and the steps to take if involved in or witness a crash. This specific standard came out of a public hearing / comment session similar to this one, where a student was in a minor crash and emotions were running high. And not only did she want to know what to do when involved in a crash, but she also wanted to know how to interact with law enforcement. Both are very valuable skills in a time when a student is nervous or panicking. So thank you for taking the time to listen to our students, parents, teachers, and others who are affected by these standards. And I encourage the board to vote to approve the standards as presented. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate your comments, as well as a reminder, just if anybody would like to submit their comments, we will put an email address in the chat for you to submit, and it's as simple as instruction@doe.virginia.gov. Our next speaker is Mr. Chris Jones.
Good evening, Dr. Anderson, Mr. Swan, and Mr. Bowling. My name is Chris Jones, and I'm the principal of Thomasdale High School in Chesterfield County. This evening, I'm speaking on behalf of VASCD, a nonpartisan nonprofit organization consisting of over 2,000 members who are teachers, school leaders, counselors, superintendents, and other school support staff focused on elevating the quality of teaching and deepening learning for all students in the Commonwealth. Our policy and advocacy teams have gathered feedback from teachers, curriculum directors, and instructional specialists from 3 of the Commonwealth's 8 regions regarding the driver education and physical education standards of learning. Specific feedback is included in the document shared prior to this meeting. This evening, my only intention is to provide general comments. With regards to driver education, we are pleased with the standards and only have a few recommendations regarding definitions and clarification of concepts to provide our teachers and administrators with clarity of intended outcomes for students' learning. With regards to the physical education standards of learning, we appreciate the emphasis on fitness planning and on social emotional well-being as part of the health and physical education experience for Virginia students. Thank you for your time this evening and the opportunity to represent VASCD.
Thank you very much. We will next move to Jackie Almarode.
Yes, I am humbled by the fact that I'm given permission to be here because I can't put any title because I'm a retired school teacher. I taught for 36 years in public education. I fought the last 5 years to keep driver education in the curriculum. I also was for the last 3 years, I was an administrator and we did learning, co-op learning. I can tell you that your standards of learnings are much easier to read. They will be much easier to enforce as well as teach. Parents shouldn't have any issues with what we're teaching. Driver education is still, thank heavens, in the school that I retired from. They wanted to continue to get rid of it. We have no private schools. And as you are well aware of, private schools have different rules than public schools. I was most impressed with the physical education curriculum because I taught basically mainly in high school, although I did teach in middle school. I like the fact that there is a lot of body image. I also like the fact that there was a lot of community involvement, which is what we did when we did the learning and I was an administrator. I can tell you that most young people will volunteer to do something if given the opportunity. We had just recently a football team that shoveled snow for the shut-in and the elderly, and either took donations or did nothing, and that was their practice. And that was from Riverheads High School, which you all know have done a great job with their football program. So I appreciate you allowing me to speak, and keep up the good work, guys. It looked great.
Thank you so much. We will next move to Risto Martinen. I hope I didn't say your name incorrectly.
That is as good as it gets. So thank you very much. My name is Dr. Risto Martinen. I'm a teacher educator at George Mason University. And today I'll be providing comments on the physical education standards. And I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be allowed to speak these words into the record. I'm passionate about health and physical education and want to commend the SOL committee on asking teachers to have a seat at the table in developing the SOLs and listening to the feedback in the first round. At Mason, we work closely with the SOLs. We work to make sure our graduates understand them and know how to implement them effectively in their future careers. And enacting policy is not just what is written, it's also about what is left out inadvertently or on purpose. And successful policy in action, which rolling out a brand new set of SOLs is, also deeply relies on continuing professional development for the teachers who are enacting that policy. So a policy document without ongoing support and action is not worth the paper that it's printed on. So I provided individual feedback on the SOLs to the working group, but I want to publicly address 5 points very quickly in reviewing the proposed SOLs. So one, successful curriculum is rooted in established curriculum theories like the socio-ecological model, the constructivist learning theories, and most of them take a strengths-based approach to learning. So it is my hope that this language is included in that SOLs. Two, to develop the skills, attitudes, and motivations for a lifetime of physical activity, we must privilege student voice and choice and make learning as well as the activities students engage in meaningful. Three, I urge Virginia to adopt more inclusive language in the SOLs. It has been an improvement, but if you look at least through the last iteration of the SOLs, you'll not find a lot of inclusive language. And I know Shape America is working a lot on this on their next iteration. Four, and we talked about this earlier today, please reconsider how you explain obesity to students and the energy balance in teaching, and energy in versus energy out concept has been argued to an incomplete explanation of how the body functions. It is sometimes the easier one to do, but it's incomplete. Five, I think we should focus on lifetime of physical fitness rather than on careers that students can attain in kinesiology. Most of the students are going to go into careers that are not in kinesiology. However, all students will benefit from a healthier lifestyle and finding ways to have meaningful movement experiences. So these career paths can be a focus later in high school like grades 11 to 12, and maybe the fitness instructor elective can be more focused on producing future physical educators, which we desperately need. And finally, I would like the leaders to reconsider the emphasis placed on fitness testing. I know there's some changes done, but no other country is so obsessed with fitness testing as we are. They are arguably, and there are lots of research on this, much more damaging to students than some believe. And yes, it's important to know what students' fitness levels are, but the way it's done now, it's a high stakes fitness test where results are rarely properly used to educate, is doing much more harm than good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move to our next speaker, John Harris.
Hello and good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, Dr. Anderson and Dr. Swan. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to represent the field that I'm passionate about. I am an elementary physical education teacher in the Commonwealth. I was not part of the group that helped write or go through the new standards, but I am liking the way that they're laid out. I'm liking the separation of certain skills and activities for the kids to be able to, so we can expand on it. Also, as far as when presenting stuff to my administration, it's able for them to pick up more of what I'm putting out. So if I identify a specific standard, it allows them to look at that directly as opposed to have to weed through where previously several skills were listed together. The flow of the standards, I feel, is a lot better, where we're presenting ideas and activities from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. I like the expanding on the social emotional learning. It has been something that's been covered for years in physical education, but I like the direct attention towards the social emotional learning, that we can, put it out there as that's what we are presenting as our lesson for the day. The inclusive practices, adding in ideas and ways to incorporate inclusion into the classroom, as a lot of the school districts have went to an inclusive classroom. I also run or used to run an adaptive PE program at my school, and that gives you some more guidelines as far as things that we can present to our students with special needs. I am a big proponent of the energy balance idea, especially to elementary level. Teaching kids about what they eat has more of an effect on their physical activity and their ability to participate in physical activity. I like the fact that we're not, pounding the idea of obesity at that elementary level. And then I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to present. I like the new standards. I like the flow of them, the look of them. They're more relatable to the national standards. And again, appreciate you guys. Thank you for all you do for our Commonwealth and for all of our students.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Dwayne Belcher.
Hey, Mr. Bowling, can you hear me?
I can certainly hear you. Thank you.
Okay, good news. No, I have no comments. I just saw this and wanted to listen, basically. So thank you for the opportunity to listen. Sorry, I can't get this camera working either, so you can see my pretty face. I can guarantee it's pretty, but no, I have no comments. So I'm just listening and taking some notes and enjoying the session. But thank you very much.
Thanks so much for joining us this evening, and
Sure.
to everyone for joining us this evening. We'll move to our next speaker that's scheduled, Emily Utter.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing the time for me to speak to you all, and welcome esteemed board members, and I'm happy to be here tonight. My name is Emily Utter. I work in the Prince William County Public Schools as the supervisor of health, physical, and driver education in the student learning department. I'm here to support the revision and proposal for the 2022 physical education standards of learning. I was a member of the SOL Physical Education Revision Committee, working with several health and physical education educators from a variety of school systems in the Commonwealth on the anatomical basis of movement curriculum strand. Several other Prince William County Public Schools health and physical education educators participated in the physical education curriculum area revisions as well. This opportunity under Ms. Wiggins' leadership allowed for engagement and deep conversations around our curriculum. And we centered our work on student learning outcomes in K-12 with a focus on the life readiness, knowledge, and skills that are needed, the building blocks needed for more complex skills and competencies, and students understanding the science behind physical movement. The overall proposed revisions support key areas of student instruction needed for an incremental improvement approach to learning growth and development. And the revision process was very collaborative. It involved a variety of stakeholders in the process. I do want to thank you for your continued support in physical education. Our curriculum and student time and experience in physical education is very important to the well-being of our students and all students in the Commonwealth. And I support the proposed curriculum revisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to our next speaker, Kathy McKay.
Excellent, thank you. Hello, my name is Dr. Kathy McKay, and I'm a teacher educator from James Madison University and also a former public school teacher in Virginia in elementary. I was an elementary PE teacher in Hanover County about 20 years ago. I'd like to speak in support of the proposed changes to the PE SOLs and highlight two changes that stick out to me as especially impactful. First, the addition of emotional development to the Strand 4 align with the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning consortium. It aligns there as an especially impactful change that will support the social and emotional development of students across the Commonwealth in physical education classes. And second, and finally, my second just really impactful comment is that the addition in Standard 4 or in Strand 4 that focuses on the inclusion of all students, specifically including the subjective experiences of inclusion, make the Virginia SOLs one of the first in the nation to define what inclusion should be and what those subjective experiences, how they come into play. My colleague, Dr. Justin Hagel, an associate professor at Old Dominion University and a well-known researcher in the field, was essential in making this change. And I think that it is wonderful that we're leading the way with these changes and that the team at VDOE has really done an outstanding job of pulling together collaborative researchers, teachers, parents, like really a collaborative team. So in summary, I'd like to offer my full support of the proposed changes to the PE SOLs and commend the hard work and dedication of the team and the leadership at VDOE on these changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we call the next speaker, I do want to invite any of the attendees that are still on the call. If you wish to speak and you haven't spoken already, please feel free to enter your wish to speak in the chat, and then we'll promote you to panelist after our next speaker. And so at this time, we'll call our next speaker, Animesh Gupta.
Hi, everybody. I am representing this speaking in as a parent. I am a parent of 3 boys, and they have 2 of them have special needs, ADHD. And apparently last week, there was a grading done to my 8th grader at Longfellow Middle School. And the grading was not, there was a disagreement. It was based on the dance sequence. And so, and it was attributed by the teacher to behaviors and other, items. And this child of mine is almost close to getting his black belt in karate. So he has motor skills, he has everything, but the grading policy based on the standards is, I somehow doesn't add up. So I wanted to, maybe if you guys can highlight your policies or what your defining, I went through the PDF for 8th grade to be more quantitative. And I mean, in terms of like how it can be judged for a person either with special needs or, I mean, having some ADHD deformity or something where he can't hear in terms, that would be beneficial or provides an outlet, because his grades are A's and here it is C's. And in karate, he's one of the best as per the instructor. So, I mean, it's not adding up. And then I also wanted to highlight another aspect of it is to add nutrition as one of the main, like, I don't know how much weightage you give, because it's what you eat is what your brain develops and your body responds to. So I know we are more on the, let's fix this problem with that medicine, we fix that problem with that medicine, but also if you eat, like drink this much glass of water a day, eat these kinds of food like carrot and all those which are beneficial for the eyes. And I mean, it's just common sense, like different vitamins from different fruits and vegetables and everything. So if you can include that, that would be helpful. And the third item I had was in driver education, maybe also be considerate of drivers who are with special needs and other challenges, both from a driver's perspective as well as law enforcement, that they know that this person cannot hear or has, but can drive, but there is some gap. So there's a human side of things or something. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. At this time, I'll invite and give a little bit of about a half a minute to see if any other attendee wishes to speak. If you do wish to speak, please do express your interest in the chat. Meanwhile, I will encourage you to submit. Okay, we will then, if you'll promote Jen Nixon. While we're doing that, if you'll please feel free to submit your comments in the chat. I've added a couple of email addresses that you can send them to. And then the next speaker after Jen Nixon will be Justin Hagel. So we'll start. We'll turn it over to Jen Nixon.
Hello, my name is Jen Nixon, and I am the Youth Education and Prevention Coordinator at Virginia Alcoholic Beverage Control Authority. And I'm also the mother of a kindergartner in New Kent County who is just beginning her learning journey in the state of Virginia and who will be directly impacted by the updates we are discussing tonight. While I'm actually here just to observe and listen, I felt compelled to speak. I'm very excited about the proposed updates to the health and PE and driver education standards of learning, particularly the strands and goals focused on enhancement of social emotional learning skills and inclusion skills, as these are an integral foundation to the youth substance prevention programming that we here at Education and Prevention Division at Virginia ABC strive to instill in our young learners. With regards to the driver education standards, the focus of safe driving and understanding the implications of marijuana and its effects on drivers, and then of course as well as including that alcohol prevention focus is very much appreciated. So please, I just wanted to let you know to keep up the good work, and thumbs up from Virginia ABC.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to Justin Hagel or Hagley.
Hey, you said it right the first time. It's Hagel. I am an associate professor here at Old Dominion University. Prior to going into higher education, I was an in-school adapted PE teacher in New York City's Department of Education. So I've worn both hats, the higher ed hat and the in-school hat. I do first want to appreciate or express my appreciation for the VDOE's openness toward including, and not just including the word inclusion, which perhaps sounds a little silly using that twice, but more so including a conceptualization of inclusion that moves beyond just the physical existence of kids within the same space. I think this is a problem that we have with a lot of words that we use in society is we use them and we essentially just pay lip service to them. I think the steps that the VDOE has taken by including inclusion as a subjective experience that's examined from the perspectives of the kids, which speaks to something Risto had said earlier by using student voice, is not just a very important step, but I think it's also a watershed moment in SOLs that can contribute and influence the way in which SOLs are written around the country. So I think this is a big deal, and something that, again, like, I appreciate the VDOE's openness toward including this concept and idea. I think Risto made a few other really good points earlier, particularly with regard to the fitness testing aspect. And I think that we as a community should be looking toward various research that exists that shows whether or not students are having meaningful experiences with things like fitness testing within PE. I do know that we have short time, so I won't go too much longer with my rants that the students here at ODU will tell you are quite classic. I think the one last thing I'll mention is, while we can change the words that we're using with regard to inclusion and using student voice and such, I think there's also the need for further training of our professionals, not just teachers, but also higher ed professionals who are interested in learning more about these concepts. And I hope that there are opportunities, perhaps through the VDOE, to help people understand these new ideas. So thanks again, and have a nice night.
Thanks very much, and thanks to all the speakers. I do not see any other attendees wish to speak expressed in the chat. If you wish to do so, please do indicate that in the chat right now. Give a little bit of wait time. As a reminder, we do have one. Let's see, Dr. Alvin, if you could promote Austin Ball. As a reminder, please do submit your comments. The email addresses are in the chat. Okay, Miss Austin Ball.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time. I just want to say I was one of Dr. Hagel's students in the adapted program. Well, I wasn't in the adapted program. I was in the health and physical education program, and Dr. Hagel was one of my professors. I just want to say that I agree with everything that he said, and definitely on the fitness testing. I find that a lot of students who need that extra modification and help and guidance to complete the tests, they really struggle. And so making all these changes that better suit them, I think is a really positive thing. And I'm glad we're moving in that direction. So I just want to thank y'all for making these changes that make the students' lives a little bit easier. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you for your comments. I'll do one last call for any speaker that wishes to, attendee that wishes to speak, if you'll indicate your wish to do so in the chat. At this time, I'll wrap things up and ask Mr. Swan to close out our meeting officially. Mr. Swan.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bowling. I'd like to thank all of you for participating in tonight's public hearing. We appreciate your feedback and engagement with the Board of Education. VDOE staff will consider all comments made tonight for any additional revisions to the proposed standards. We anticipate that the proposed standards will come back to the board for final review at their March 17th, 2022 meeting.